You're looking for the latest information on Southern University sports, the Southwestern Athletic Conference, and HBCU athletics. There's only one place to go. Tune in to the Carlos Brown Show, exclusively on the Black College Sports Network.
Let's get back to strolling instead of scrolling. Before we can safely come together, we need the facts on COVID-19 vaccines. Visit getvaccineanswers.org so you can make an informed decision for yourself and for your family.
Some carriers will give you just one measly entertainment subscription. One is no fun. With Verizon, there's up to 7 entertainment subscriptions with your unlimited plan. That's 7 times the... 7 times the... No. 7 times the... Music, gaming, Disney+, Hulu, ESPN+, and more. That's 7 times the entertainment!
Because everyone deserves better.
And with plans starting at just $35, better costs less than you think.
If you think all pads are exactly the same, think again. This is Always Ultra Thins reinvented with the Always Triple Protection System. This pad wicks gushes 90% faster, absorbs even more so you can feel dry, and locks odors in. Rethink your pad for up to 100% leak-free and odor-free comfort with the totally reinvented Always Ultra Thins. This is always like never before.
Nope. Nope.
Come on, him?
Ooh, I like him.
Quick, the quicker picker-upper. Bounty picks up messes quicker, and each sheet is 2 times more absorbent, so you can use less.
He's an 8.
He's a 9.
Bounty, the quicker picker-upper.
At Tyson, we know taste is local. Some like their beef pit smoked, their chicken spiced all the way up, or their pork sweet and saucy. Local flavors, global impact. That's what feeding the world is all about.
This is the BCSN Pod Zone, your place for the news, views, and conversations about all things related to HBCU athletics. Here are the BCSN Sports Wrap, Dr. Cavil's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab, Knights of the Round Table, the pregame show, the Carlos Brown Show, the ONG Strike Zone, and more in one place. We are changing the way you consume HBCU sports, one broadcast at a time.
You're looking for the latest information on Southern University sports, the Southwestern Athletic Conference, and HBCU athletics. There's only one place to go. Tune in to the Carlos Brown Show, exclusively on the Black College Sports Network.
Let's get back to strolling instead of scrolling. Before we can safely come together, we need the facts on COVID-19 vaccines. Visit getvaccineanswers.org so you can make an informed decision for yourself and for your family.
Some carriers will give you just one measly entertainment subscription. One is no fun. With Verizon, there's up to 7 entertainment subscriptions with your unlimited plan. That's 7 times the... 7 times the... No. 7 times the... Music, gaming, Disney+, Hulu, ESPN+, and more. That's 7 times the entertainment!
Because everyone deserves better.
And with plans starting at just $35, better costs less than you think.
If you think all pads are exactly the same, think again. This is Always Ultra Thins reinvented with the Always Triple Protection System. This pad wicks gushes 90% faster, absorbs even more so you can feel dry, and locks odors in. Rethink your pad for up to 100% leak-free and odor-free comfort with the totally reinvented Always Ultra Thins. This is always like never before.
Nope. Nope.
Come on, him.
Ooh, I like him.
Quick, the quicker picker-upper. Bounty picks up messes quicker, and each sheet is 2 times more absorbent so you can use less.
He's an 8.
He's a 9.
Bounty, the quicker picker-upper.
At Tyson, we know taste is local. Some like their beef pit smoked, their chicken spiced all the way up, or their pork sweet and saucy. Local flavors, global impact. That's what feeding the world is all about.
This is the BCSN Pod Zone, your place for the news, views, and conversations about all things related to HBCU athletics. Here the BCSN Sports Wrap, Dr. Cavil's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab, Knights of the Round Table, the pregame show, the Carlos Brown Show, the ONG Strike Zone, and more in one place. We are changing the way you consume HBCU sports, one broadcast at a time.
Yeah. I love my HBCU. And boy, I love it, love it. I love it, love it. I love my HBCU. And man, I hope my team they won one. I hope my team they won one. Yeah, man. I hope my team they won one. I hope my team they won one. I tune into the HBCU Sports Lab to see if my team won or lost. If they lost, I'm quiet as a mouse. But if they won, keep tab. I'ma do the dab, yeah. Dr. Cavil, he know what he be talking about. Mike and Charles, they know what they be talking about. They compress the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they won or lost, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Cavil inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Watson and Charles Bishop. Mike is out on assignment where we have Charles Bishop and I here with AD Drew. Welcome to episode 433 inside the HBCU Sports Lab radio show and podcast, the show that's covering the sporting HBCU dash for all things HBCU sports. For institutions large and small, from the NAIA to the NCAA, we share insights and information on the HBCU sports culture. And HBCU athletic aesthetics to facilitate the story of HBCU athletic programs in the business of HBCU sports. Better known as, we just call it HBCU sports culture. I'm your host, Dr. Cavil, along with my co-host, Mike Washington, Charles Bishop, filming from our home studios and sending a signal live to KCOH 1230 AM studios with the Texas Radio Hall of Famer, multi-Hall of Famer Ralph Cooper in the beautiful home at Texas Southern University from Houston, Texas. Charles, how you doing today?
I'm doing well, Doc. Now we got these out-of-conference games out of the way. It's time to jump into conference play all over the place.
You ready for some more conference play, huh?
I'm ready for conference play. Now the analyst part really takes hold now. Now let's see what we're looking at.
Yeah, we can really get into it. AD Drew, how you doing today?
Hey, man, I'm doing fine. Just happy to hopefully see some teams get above water, get above the Mendoza line. You know, we've only got 4 teams that have 2 victories, and one of those is a 500. So maybe when we start playing each other, we can see these things start to balance out, and we can really see who's the king of the hill. Because when it comes down to us in HBCU sports, it's all about conference championships anyway.
It's certainly what the sports culture wants. I'll say this, though, the tough thing about playing conference games is, obviously there's a winner, but there's also a loser,
exactly.
Today's episode of Inside the HBC Sports Lab is sponsored by THG Agency. THG Agency is a company that provides sporting and educational consulting and data analytics. We'll get into some of those matchups, but right now, let's get into some news of the day. With that being said, I'll start it off because I thought this was fascinating. Obviously, you had the stuff out there with Jackson State, Coach T.C. Taylor, Coach Reed, talked about 60 Minutes, and it had nothing to do with Coach Sanders, Coach Prime. It was about 60 Minutes and how they portrayed the city of Jackson and obviously in direction Jackson State, but really to focus on Jackson State. And something told me, I didn't even watch it. I tend to watch stuff, but I wasn't going to watch 60 Minutes, not anything to do with Coach Prime and stuff like that. I knew he would do what he does. I just had this feeling about 60 Minutes and what they do in that space that didn't feel comfortable. And I knew something was coming up. Sure did. So shout out to Coach Reed, Coach Taylor, in terms of voicing their disappointment. Next one I want to get into, I'm going to go to you, Charles. I know we got some players of the week that we're always excited about. Let's get into some of these players of the week.
Let's take a look at the SWAC players of the week, SWAC football weekly honors for this past week. The SWAC has named Florida A&M's Jeremy Musa, Grambling State's Lewis Matthews, and Tylen Williams, along with Southern's Joshua Griffiths, as its SWAC football players of the week for their impressive performances this past week. Let's take a look at Jeremy Musa on the offensive side of the ball. Musa led the Rattlers to their 16th straight win at Bragg Memorial Stadium. He won 18 of 27, 271 yards and 3 touchdowns. Especially take a look at him in the third quarter. He completed 9 of his 10 passes for 179 yards and 3 touchdowns. On the defensive side of the ball, Lewis Matthews, big day for the Grambling State Tigers in his 58-22 win over Florida Memorial. The senior linebacker racked up 11 total tackles, including a 32-yard interception return for a touchdown. Newcomer of the week in the SWAC was Tylen Williams. Williams had a breakout game for the Grambling State this past weekend. He tallied 3 receptions for 102 yards, including a big 67-yard touchdown reception. And the specialist of the week was Southern's Joshua Griffin. He connected on 2 field goals and 2 extra points in Jaguars' 20-10 win over Alabama A&M. He also contributed 4 kickoffs, averaging 64.5 yards per kick. So those were your SWAC players of the week.
Big time SWAC players of the week. With that being said, AD Drew, you had some news that you wanted to focus on for the HBC week this in your mind is hot.
I don't know if you guys covered it on Thursday, but there was a big press conference on Thursday announcing the Florida Beach Bowl. And I almost said Peach Bowl, but it's the Florida Beach Bowl that will feature a
CIAA
team. Yes, that will feature a CIAA team versus an SIAC team. Not necessarily for the championship of that level, but it's a bowl game, and I think it's exciting that we are going to have a bowl that's going to feature our Division II teams from our two historical HBCU conferences, and allow them to show their talents. While there was a press conference, I do have some questions that were unanswered in that press conference. But I am always the ultimate optimist that this thing is going to get pulled off in fine fashion and be something that we will be talking about off of our tongues, just like we talk about the Celebration Bowl every year.
Good stuff. And to your point, both commissioners there from Jackie McWilliams out of the CIAA, obviously, as well as the SIAC. And we saw their release, but this week CIAA did do a official release talking about the board. So I kind of pointed it out last week, but the fact that you pulled it up, I think, is appropriate. So I'm glad that you brought that back to it, particularly with the CIAA. And Jackie McWilliams is quoted as saying, "We are continuously evaluating ways to improve the CIAA experience for student athletes, alumni, fans. Adding a new component like the Florida Beach Bowl creates yet another opportunity for collaboration for our HBCU conferences," end quote. It's a great point there. We'll go back to you, Charles. What about on the MEAC side? There's some players of the day that did they shine on the MEAC? Who got some love in terms of the MEAC?
Let's take a look at the MEAC as they announced their weekly honors. Howard senior wide receiver Casey Hawthorne was the MEAC football offensive player of the week. Howard defensive back Kenny Gallup earned the defensive player of the week, while Norfolk State's freshman Noah Tracy was named the rookie of the week. Let's take a look at their accolades. Casey Hawthorne, the senior 5'11" wide receiver, recorded 3 total touchdowns against Hampton, passed and rushed for 1 touchdown. He also caught 3 passes for 67 yards, averaging 22.3 yards per catch with a touchdown. Defensive player of the week was Kenny Gallup, the senior DB, 6'1", collected a game high 8 total tackles, 7 solo against the rival Hampton. He also forced and recovered a fumble in that game. And Tracy, we take a look at Norfolk State's freshman Noah Tracy being named the rookie of the week, the place kicker. Punted the ball 5 times for 194 yards, averaging 38.8 yards per punt against Temple. He also recorded a 50-yard boot with one inside the 20-yard line. So those were your MEAC players of the week. Big week for a couple of Howard players in that loss to Hampton.
I did check it out. Obviously, Hampton had the big win over Howard. We talked about it on Sunday. So I wanted to go see if the Coastal, formerly known as the Colonial Athletic Association, was anybody from Hampton recognized in terms of player of the week. Not to be done. But OVC talked about Tennessee State getting a big conference win. Well, guess what?
Huge.
The kicker that did the 49-yard kick I spoke about, you all broke down, the 50-yard game winner. Well, deservedly so. He was recognized as the Big South OVC Special Teams Player of the Week. James Lowry, kicker, 5'10", 210, redshirt junior, Lauderdale, Florida. With 9 seconds left to lift Tennessee State to a 27-25 victory over Garland Webb in the John Merritt Classic. And I will add thrilling. I did get to watch it.
Mike check.
It marked the 5th longest field goal of FCS this season. The junior nailed a 49 field goal just 6 minutes prior. Both surpassed the previous career-long field goals of 43 yards. Lowry is one of just 2 players nationally with a pair of field goals longer than 49 yards. He also was perfect on PATs, finished the game with 9 total points. This marks Lowry's first year as a place kicker after previously serving as the team's kickoff specialist. Wow. So shout out to Lowry. Shout out to the SWAC Players of the Week. Shout out to the MEAC Players of the Week. You know, on Thursday, we'll try to give some love to the SIAC, CIAA, and we even might sneak in some volleyball, SWAC, MEAC players, see if we can get that in there. Show you some love there, as well as SWAC soccer. And with that, I want to give this out there. We're going details on Thursday, but Howard women's soccer program kicking some butt. They've won 5 games in a row, and their next contest is against Alabama A&M. So it should be interesting as they welcome the Bulldog to the capital in Washington, D.C. With that, let's take our first break. Come back on the other side. It's time to unveil the top 7. We're going to get into the top 7, Charles. Week 3, we're going to see what you think about my top 7. Drew, don't get quiet on me. We're going to see what you think of the top 7 as well. Stick with us. We'll be right back after this first break.
Charmin Ultra Soft has so much cushiony softness, it's hard for your family to remember they can use less.
Sweet pillows of softness.
This is soft.
Holy Charmin. Oh, excuse me. Roll it back, everybody.
Sorry.
Charmin Ultra Soft is so cushiony soft, you'll want more, but it's so absorbent, you can use less, so it's always worth it.
Now, what did we learn about using less?
You gotta roll it back, everybody.
We all go. Why not enjoy the go with Charmin?
Since 2002, Empowerment Resources, Inc., a nonprofit organization, has empowered more than 1,500 youth and adults in Duval and surrounding counties. Through its programs, Journey into Womanhood, Girls Mentoring, Life Skills for Teens, and Parenting Education Coaching. To get involved with programs, volunteer, or donate, visit www.empowermentresourcesinc.org. Follow us on social media, facebook.com/empowerment.resources and instagram.com/empowermentjax.
T. Madden and Associates is a sophisticated and experienced law firm located in your neighborhood. We're turning injury to cash.
T. Madden and Associates obtained almost $2 million for my injury. They turned my injury to cash.
Now, we can't guarantee how much your injury is worth, but we've recovered millions for our clients.
Call T. Madden and Associates at 833-PAID-123. That's 833-PAID-123.
Press the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna lose, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Cavill's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Charles, you ready for some poll mid-major rankings?
Let's jump into it. I'm interested about this. This is gonna be good.
I'm gonna give it out like this. Guess what? Not one team dropped out of polls this week. Not one team dropped out. So all the teams winning, doing well. So, but there were some teams that may have played better than others. So we do have some changes in terms of the order. So I want to see what y'all think about my changes in the order. Before this, I do want to give some love, I should say, for those receiving votes. 3 teams outside of the top 10 are receiving votes. That is West Virginia State, 2-1 overall, 1-0 in conference play, rolling 120 points. Fort Valley State, 2-1, 2-0 in conference play, 100 in conference play, 111 points, as well as Central State, 1-1 as they move, or 1-2, I should say, and 0-1 in terms of what they got going. With that being said, let's jump into the top 7. This week at number 7, Miles Golden Bears, 2-1. They had that tough road loss. Just could not quite get it done. They are 1-1 in terms of their overall play in conference. They sit at 7 with 130 points. They dropped 2 slots. They do not drop out of the top 7 after the big win the previous week at Alabama State, stepping up in the division and playing and giving the Golden Lions everything they wanted in that matchup. Bring us to number 6. You have none other than the Bowie State Bulldogs, 2-1 overall, 1-0 in terms of conference play. They're rolling 139 points, big victory this past Saturday. They move up 1 spot previously in 7 with 139 points. At number 5, Allen Yellow Jackets. I want you to think about this. They're 2-0. Some will say 3-0. They had the exhibition game. So in terms of playing 3 total games, they got a huge comeback win that we all talked about on Sunday. Coming back from 27 points in the fourth quarter to get it done. They're rolling, setting up a big matchup that we might get a chance to talk about a little later on in the show. They have 142 points and they move up the slot, getting it done on Saturday. Bringing us to number 4 as we chop down this list. Tuskegee Golden Tigers, 3-0. 2-0 in conference play, and they're rolling. They're back in the football business. Started last year, but they come back and showing everybody that they're ready for it. They had a tremendous game against Central State that seemed to give them everything they wanted. But at home, they get it done. So the wins go to spoils. They stay at number 4 with 149 points. Number 4. This is where we see another one of the changes in the top 3 spot. At number 3, you have Virginia Union Panthers. 3-0. Closer than most people may have thought in terms of the victory there.
Yeah.
Overall, 166 points, and I think cost them in terms of them falling a slot from number 2, losing a vote as well in terms of being first place in some people's minds. But there's one person that still thinks they should be number 1, and that's where they get the first place vote. But at number 2, the team that was just behind them has now slid past them. Virginia State Trojans are 3-0 as well, as the Virginia schools follow pat at the mid-major level. And they are rolling in the Northern Division, which is tough as we think it is. Sitting at 1-0. Remember, week 1, they shocked the world with Norfolk State. Norfolk State comes back the following week and gets a win against Hampton, which makes the Virginia State win even more impressive. They get a non-conference win, and then they really pound their opponent in that first conference game. So they're rolling, playing some good football. Get one first place vote, jump up to a slot with 180 points. And so they're rolling. But at number 1, shouldn't surprise you, you have Benedict Tigers sitting at 3-0, 2-0, 7 first place votes. So they gain a first place vote this week as they continue to roll and rampage everything as they go. 7 first place votes, as I said, 187 points. They stay at number 1, and they are rolling. As you see, the Benedict Tigers remain number 1 in the rankings. Add a first place vote in week number 3. This is Dr. Cavill's 2023 HBCU Mid-Major Division Football Top 7 poll rankings, week number 3. Charles, are you chomping a bit to get at it? What do you think? Where did we go wrong?
Well, I see Benedict, and like you mentioned, Benedict is rampaging. Aeneas Dennis, 264 yards passing, a couple touchdowns. But, they got a road test coming October 7th when they head down to Miles. Miles is number 7. I know we got to penalize them for the loss, but that ain't a number 7 team. That's a real good football team. So already, I got Benedict at Miles circled October 7th. That is going to be a fun one.
I do like that you set up the matchup. I can see that you're not green at this and you know what you're doing. I do have a question, though, for you. Previously ranked 5. How far up do you believe they should be, since you do not believe they are number 7?
The Allen win was very impressive. And I have to look on the schedule, see if there's an Allen Miles matchup. But thus far, Miles taking on 2 SWAC schools, knocking off one and coming within the eyelash of the other. Whew, I would probably have them up somewhere around 5. That's impressive.
So you'd have kept them at 5. If with the loss, respectable loss, I'll give you that on the road. Had chances to win that game. A big 4th down stop by the Golden Lions. Credit to them. Getting it done. A couple of missed field goals. Or we would be talking about something else today about how far up they should go from 5. That being said, Drew, what are your thoughts? Are you going in the same direction as Charles? Or are you going to spin it? And what else are you looking at if that's the case?
I did have one correction for you, Doc. You have Miles' conference record at 1-1. They are 1-0 in conference. They lost to UAPB. It was non-conference. Just want to make that for everybody who's out there. So Miles is 2-1, 1-0
Appreciate it.
for everybody out there. But speaking of the Miles Golden Bears, I have to concur with Charles that they are obviously the best one-loss team that we have at the Division II level. So that definitely moves them up to ahead of Bowie State. Just based on that, the fact that the losses by 1 point to an FCS opponent. Now the question is a 2-1 Miles better than a 2-0 Allen? If you just take name value, if you take name value, yes. If you take dramatics, I don't know. That was a hell of a drama that we had on Saturday, man.
Well said.
And going with the other ones, I do agree with the flip-flopping of the Virginia teams. Now, the next question would be with that is, does Tuskegee break that Virginia stranglehold in their 2-3 slot? Because both Tuskegee and Virginia Union struggled to get victories on this past Saturday, even though they got them. So those are just a couple of questions. I don't disagree with anything, except I do bump Miles up a minimum of 1 spot, possibly 2 spots. But the other ones, we're splitting hairs with everybody behind Benedict, honestly.
Does Benedict
add something else?
Yeah, well, the question is, does Benedict get their first test this weekend on the road at Chowan?
Drew, what are your thoughts on that? He said no.
No.
Dramatic pause.
No. I don't. The thing with Chowan, a lot of the players who were there last year who would have been eligible to return left. I can't remember what the new coach is, but Chowan does have a new coach, and just like with Albany State, a lot of the players who were there left with the coach and followed him to the new institution. He's in North Carolina. Don't remember what institution he's in, but he's still in the state of North Carolina. So giving that, this is not last year's Chowan team that we are talking about Benedict going up and facing. But this does look like a Benedict team right now through 3 games is better than last year's Benedict team. We know how special last year's Benedict team was through 3 games. So
well said. Well, let's get into our second break. We'll come back on the other side. We'll talk about some mid-major matchups. They're not going to necessarily be those big conference games. We'll save those for Thursday, but we have a classic game we'll look at. I want to give some teams some love, especially in terms of the independents as well. So stick with us. We'll be right back on the other side for the third segment, talking about these key mid-major matchups of the week.
Your ad could be ran here. MyJBN.com/support. MyJBN.com/support for more information.
The new GMC Sierra with hands-free driving offers the most advanced and luxurious pickup in its class. Yeah, it rocks.
From novice to aficionado, find yourself here. High quality cigars plus personal customer service. Slow Burn is Waco's only mobile cigar lounge, featuring a meticulous, curated collection of premium cigars. Visit our website, www.slowburnwaco.com. That's www.slowburnwaco.com.
Supermarket sushi, really?
No. Wait, Troy, you work here?
I'm never not working. Like Head & Shoulders Scalp Shield technology, up to 100% dandruff protection, even between washes.
Never not working, huh?
Oh, Troy, you're such a good teacher.
Yeah, I know. Never not working. Never not working. Never ever not working.
Are you serious?
Never not working. Standard protection that's never not working. Head and Shoulders Scalp Shield technology.
It's like a loop machine. All around town, people trying to get down.
Press the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna law, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Bill's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with A.D. Drew and Charles Bishop. Let's get into some of these mid-major matchups. This is a classic game, but it's all SIAC. The public institutions, the first matchup between those three public institutions in the state of Georgia at the Division II level. They get the first of those matchups. They get a showdown this weekend in Brunswick, Georgia, Glenn County Stadium, Coastal City HBCU Classic, Saturday, September the 23rd at 2 p.m. You have Albany State, the Golden Rams, that are 1-2, 1-0, versus Savannah State Tigers, 2-1, 1-0 in terms of this matchup. If I had to go in terms of how I've ranked these teams in terms of those top 30 or so mid-major programs, it is a pretty decent matchup when you look at it like this. Basically, I would have number 16 versus number 10. Well, with that being tough, it's a tough matchup, but let's get into it. With that being said, let me go to you first, A.D. Drew. Albany State Golden Rams, Savannah State Tigers. One of these teams gets to continue looking at Savannah State Tigers. They can improve to 3-1. Not necessarily a very impressive 3-1, but anytime you can get to that margin, you'll take it. They'll be 2-0 in the race. Or do you get Albany State that gets to stay at 2-0 in the conference race and improve to 500 overall? Which direction are you going in this matchup, Drew?
Well, the important thing that you brought out in that conversation, Dr. Cavil, is the 2-0 portion. Despite both teams being unimpressive thus far through the season, they are 1-0 in conference. And that is the key thing when it comes to these two institutions, is that they remain in the conference race. And let's be real. Right now, teams feel like they are chasing Benedict, Tuskegee, and Miles. So anytime that you can get a victory against one of these other foes so that you can stay in the race, it's going to be important. Because right now, it's a 3, and if Allen decides to play spoiler, you've got a 4-team race for 2 spots. So that's what these teams are playing for. But I will say this, living down here in the South Georgia area, there's a little bit of buzz about this game in this particular area in Brunswick. You know, they do recruit into that eastern portion of Georgia, both of them. Savannah is a little bit geographically closer, but still, both of them get into that same type area, the Camden County, and recruit some of those players from there. So this game is for more than conference record, conference bragging right. This game is for recruiting. So I'm kind of favoring Savannah State in this particular game, though, if you would ask me to give you a prediction in this game, Dr. Cavil.
Leaning to the Tigers, Swamp Tigers, as some people say in that area. Charles, which direction you going with this matchup? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with AD. This is not just a conference game, but it's a battle for some recruiting edge, especially within the area. Spent some time down there in Brunswick, Georgia, about a year and a half of my life. Experienced Savannah State homecoming and enjoyed myself tremendously. Isaiah Knowles, tremendous quarterback for Albany State, 264 yards last week, 3 touchdowns. I'm sort of leaning with I'm leaning Golden Rams on this one. I like Savannah State, but yeah, but I'm just I'm gonna be the fly in the ointment. I'm gonna go with Albany State on this.
Like it. Let's switch gears. We're gonna go off the radar a little bit. Independent non-conference mid-major division game of the week. We're gonna head to Texas as well as Oklahoma. On the plains, they said in those parts, right? Or are you in East Texas in the woods? This one is in the woods. Tyler, Texas Rose Stadium. Independent game of the week, but it's actually a conference matchup. Sooner Athletic Conference Saturday, September the 23rd at 6 p.m. under the lights. You have Texas College Steers hosting Langston Lions. Again, if I was looking at my index and I wanted to rank all these teams at the mid-major level, that's Division II and NIA, this would be 20 versus 31. So again, they're off, but it's important because somebody is going to get their first win of the season, and it will be a conference win. Charles, what do you say about this matchup?
It's been a tough season thus far for Langston. Normally, we don't see them 0-2 going into this game. They're breaking in a freshman quarterback, Randy Martin. He had a big game last week, over 200 yards passing. A couple players to keep an eye out on in this game. Randy Martin, as mentioned, but also Texas College. They have a young man, huge game last week. Get this, Arnold Young, 17 tackles last week for the Texas College Steers. But take a look at this matchup. Langston is literally 7-0 in the matchup history with regards to playing Texas College. And I don't think they will be deterred from getting number 8. I think Langston will get the win in this weekend.
Langston has not recovered from the hiccup late last year, Drew. As Charles alluded to, this is a team over the last couple of years we're used to fighting for conference championship. They started off well last year, and they have went on a swoon, and it seems to have continued this year. Charles talked about the freshman quarterback, but in a lot of ways they're young across the board in different areas. But Texas College says they don't care. They want to win. They have long sought a win, and they certainly could use one over Langston, which they have not defeated in many moons. With that being said, Drew, what are your thoughts on this matchup?
This is a battle of I forgotten about HBCU against the battle of I not thought about HBCU. I mean, I know you guys down in Texas may think about Texas College, but us over here on the East Coast, you know, it's like Texas who? Anyway, a lot of people probably thought a lot of people probably thought Jackson State was playing this team last week instead of the other Texas team that they played last week that you know, put a 70 spot up on. But anyway, for Langston, like you said, Dr. Cavil, ever since last year, they have not been able to figure it out. And the last couple of years, they have not closed well. But this is un-Langston-like. They've gotten off to strong starts the last 3, 4, 5 years, ever since Quentin Morgan has been there. So for them to get off to an 0-2 start, this game is crucial for them to be able to right the ship. You know, they had a double bye. They played week 0, did not play week 1 and 2. Go figure out that type of scheduling. But anyway, and Texas College is just trying to get it right. You know, Texas College, I know they haven't won a conference game in a number of years, and the wins there have been few and far between. So if you're Texas College, you're figuring, hey, this is our opportunity to catch Langston while they're down. And one other thing, Dr. Cavil, I don't know if you realize this is a battle between 2 of the 4 remaining NAIA football programs that we have, with Arkansas Baptist and Florida Memorial being the other 2. So for us to get them and for you to feature them as a game of the week, kudos.
Thank you. Yeah, there's not many out there. That NIA football is a dying breed because when you think about the programs at the NIA level, you have a whole conference, the Gulf Coast Athletic Conference, but most of them do not play football. So thank you for recognizing why we do what we do. With that being said, let's take our third break. We'll come back on the other side. We'll get into our 4th segment. Now it's time for the big boys. Let's look at the major division. We're going to look at the major division top 7 poll rankings this week in week number 3 and see what these gentlemen think about what the computers and the magic and the voters all put together this week. I will tell you this as a tease. There's a change at the top. Let's see who number 1 will be. With that, stick with us. We'll be right back on the other side.
so much. I miss you, Dad.
At CDW, we get speed as the new currency of success.
Our team spends way too much time tending to outdated applications and software when they should be focused on driving application agility and innovation.
CDW Amplified Development Services modernizes software and application development to help accelerate innovation and digital transformation.
So you mean building new applications, UI, and mobile interfaces?
Well, you said you needed to innovate more quickly.
Oh, so he's a listener.
To do more at scale, trust CDW Amplified Development Services.
Press the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna lose, yeah, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
Cavil inside HBCU Sports Lab with AD and Charles. Let's get into it. As we get into the top 7 for the major division, there were 2 teams that dropped out this week. One of them had a stunning loss. Howard Bison 1-2. Hadn't played a conference game. They get a chance to right the ship and get that part right. But boy, they were leading Hampton big time and they let it get away. With that being said, Alabama A&M went into Baton Rouge, the Bluff, thinking that they had a chance to get a big conference win. Set themselves up in the top 7 and maybe make an argument to move up. It was not to be. They fall to 1-2 and out of the top 7 poll as they go 0-1 in SWAC play. Receiving votes, though, Howard Bison still getting love at 1-2. 168 points. You're talking about the Southern Jaguars. They got that big victory, first win of the season, and a big one, conference game. They're receiving votes at 1-2, 1-0, 154 points. And the Grambling State Tigers. You talk about Florida Memorial, the other NIA team that Drew mentioned, one of the 4 there. Grambling State Tigers defeat them. Now, Florida Memorial showed some substance in terms of what they were able to do offensively. But Grambling State Tigers at home were just too much to get it done. And people like what they saw in terms of on the offensive side. So they get some votes as they come in as the 3rd team outside the poll. Let's get in the top 7 now. At number 7, we have Morgan State Bears. They look like they were still punch drunk over what happened the week before when they had a chance to get the FBS win. It was not to be. They sit at 1-2 and lost that crosstown matchup against Townsend Tigers that jumped on them early and would not let them breathe. Morgan State Bears tried to push valiantly, if you would, in terms of the second half, but it was not to be. So they dropped 4 spots, nearly out to the poll, but they hang on. 1-2, 178 points, bringing us to number 6. We have a new sighting. Everybody said, watch out, Alcorn State Braves. They were picked, and they're in the mix for the SWAC. Well, they had a big non-conference win at home. McNeese State, they made it 2 in a row. They go down to McNeese last year, put them on the ropes. This year, they do it at home and hit them again. They're 1-2 as they play their first conference game this week against Prairie and the Panthers. 179 points. They were not ranked last week, so they vault into the top 7. With that being said, at number 5, Jackson State Tigers fall to 2-2, 0-1, 88 points. They drop down a spot from number 4 as they still are in the top 7 getting it done. At number 4, Hampton Pirates, 2-1 on the season. This is another team that was not ranked that jumps into the poll this week, coming from behind, stunning a lot of the faithful out there Bison that thought they were going to get their first win. This game reminded me when I watched it afar and I just could hear it in so many different ways of what was taking place. Charles, I don't know if you got a chance to watch it, but I'm sure you'll break it down and tell us. But if you did, I'm sure in a lot of ways, like me, it reminded you of the Labor Day Classic. Team was kind of big in terms of the rivals, and they rushed back in 4th quarter. This one didn't even need overtime. They get it done 35-34. Victor goes to spoils. Pirates hold on to their long winning streak, much like the Panthers. 200 points. Let's get in the top 3. At number 3, Tennessee State Tigers, 2-1 and 1-0 in conference play. That's the Big South OVC. We told you about the Player of the Week, so now you know they got the big conference win, and they vault up 2 spots in the poll rankings at 212. Are the Tigers back? We'll see. Just keep watching. But at this point, they're ranked number 3. Bringing us to number 2, North Carolina Centrals. They fall from the 1 spot. Let me say it again. North Carolina Central Eagles. They fall from the 1 spot. They go to the West Coast. Tough loss. 2-1 on the season. 5 first place votes. 205 points. Number 1 previously. Should be interesting because some people would think because of the matchup, how things went, they maybe shouldn't have fallen. But it was close. They still have 5 first place votes. You get at it and you go to number 1. Florida and them Rattlers jump in here in the mix. 2-1 on the season. They get a win. Division 2 West Florida. It was a top 10 ranked Division 2 program. They were at home. So start 3-3 at the half, but in the third quarter they put it on solid the rest of the way. 2-1. They still hold on to that 1-0 as they had that opening weekend victory over Jackson State. They have 7 first place votes, so they just eke out 247 points, and they move to number 1 at least for a week in week number 3. We'll see if they can hold on to it, see what people think as things move forward, as this is just a snapshot of a poll ranking. People, we don't do the projections. We did that early in the preseason. Now it's week to week, looking at matchups, look at what teams do in this week and those things. So you'll see some teams maybe slide. But at the end of the day, I want to see what AD Drew thinks about the poll rankings in week 3, and then we'll go to Charles.
I'm going to leave this poll up for me while I discuss something. And I'm just looking at this. Your number 1 and your number 2 team, Dr. Cavil. 2 wins. Everybody 5 it up. Your 2-win team. Okay, great that we got all the 2-win teams bundled up there together. But your number 1 and your number 2 teams have victories against D2s. But number 3, 4, and 5 have not played D2. That's something to think about. Jackson State, having played 1 extra game because of the week 0 against Florida A&M, who lost to your number 1 team, is that loss worth more than those victories by your number 3, your number 4 team? I'm just doing some things that I'm looking at and seeing. Alcorn. It's usually unusual when a team comes from not ranked into a poll and then jumps ahead of a team who was highly ranked, a la Morgan State, the first time that they're in the poll. Just a couple of observations that I'm looking at as I'm breaking down the poll. No comments on that stuff one way or another. Just some general observations that I'm seeing. Now, Charles, I'll toss you the softball. Let's see if it's going to be WTP or if it's going to be a home run.
Well, Charles goes, I will say this.
Baseball lingo.
AD Drew, those are very astute observations. So I want to hear what Charles has to say before I go in.
As much as I wanted to fight you on North Carolina, North Carolina Central falling from number 1, I think you can make a hard argument to FAMU. They passed the eyeball test, in terms of how they look thus far this season. You take on an FBS team, albeit not an FBS team that's a Power 5 team, but yet still they passed the eyeball test. Let me make some quick observations. Alcorn, impressive. You beat McNeese back-to-back years, and that running game is going to be something to keep an eye on with regards to Alcorn the rest of the season. Jarvin Howard is that dude, and he's going to be a handful for teams in SWAC play. Great matchup with Prairie View and Alcorn this upcoming weekend because they're both teams that really mirror each other. Jackson State, I said this about Jackson State. If they can get through their first 4 games, they get real scary the rest of the way. And it was a lopsided loss this past weekend at Texas State, 77 points. They literally couldn't do nothing to stop them on the defensive side of the ball. But Jackson State, interestingly enough, has found at least a couple more pieces from an offensive standpoint going the rest of the way. I think, that's going to be a team to watch in terms of putting points up. Hampton, wow, I can't say enough about it. I think you touched on it, Doc. You talk about a team that fought back and, that refused to lose, really kicked in, and they stamped themselves as real. I want to talk about Tennessee State and that win over Gardner-Webb. Draylon Ellis, up and down career thus far at Tennessee State. I can't say enough about him in terms of getting the game-winning drive and knock home a 50-yarder for the game winner. Tennessee State is on top of the OVC. When's the last time we've even talked about Tennessee State being on top of the OVC like that? That's a huge win for them. So, I can't fight you on this week's poll. This is a good poll. It's you really kind of get to decipher more things in these upcoming polls, but this was a tough one to really kind of look at and kind of sit back and say, okay, I like this. I like what teams are slotted, and it's going to be fun watching how these 7 or 8 teams, because I do believe Southern, although it was ugly, they're going to figure it out at some point, because I do think they got talent on the offensive side of the ball. And I think, once we get into conference play, the defense will rear their ugly head. Now is the time things are really going to kind of turn themselves out and going to become fun. That Alcorn Prairie View matchup is a great, great matchup this upcoming weekend.
Yeah,
Talking about that matchup is going to be interesting to see where that goes. We will talk about that in depth on Thursday. Drew, what did you want to say when we go to our last segment?
I want to ask Charles, if you said Southern is going to figure it out and get back into the 7, so who do they replace? I've got my thoughts, but I want to hear yours first. And put it back up for you. Who does Southern replace?
As of today, who does Southern replace? They don't replace anybody.
He's saying as you projected out.
You say they go get it right. So out of this group that we have right now, who are they going to knock out? Or who's not knock themselves out to allow Southern to come in?
Right.
Let me table that, because I think you can make a good hard argument for 4 teams in the SWAC West. That's how difficult it is to answer that right now. Because I've seen enough from each of Prairie View, Grambling, Alcorn, and Southern to where on any given night, it's going to be a slip by either team. That's the margin of victory for any of these teams. And I think that's the thing that makes it hard to kind of answer that right now. So let me table that.
I'll throw this in. If Body is back, then I think you talk about 5, and that's the question mark to see where is Body. With that said, Drew, who you think gonna fall out?
Well, kind of along the same lines as you just mentioned, Charles, but I think because of those factors that you just mentioned, that does not allow Southern to creep back in there, because everybody is bunched up right there together. Somebody's going to be 4-4 or 5-3 winning that West, which I'm afraid is not going to be enough to crack this top 7, because you're going to be at 500 or just above 500. Now, if I had to get in the corner and pick one team, I'm going to pick the Hampton Pirates as the one team that would fall out and open it up for someone, maybe not Southern, but for someone, just because of the gauntlet of that CAA schedule that they have to play.
Yeah. And let me throw something else out real quick about that West. It's literally going to come down to the consistency of the quarterback play, because everybody in SWAC West, I think, has 2 great running backs. I mean, when I take a look at how they move the ball offensively, they're going to have to come up with something opportunistic on defense, and they're just going to have to get enough from the quarterback play, especially when you take a look at how they've kind of been up and down. You can see inconsistencies across the board with each of the quarterbacks in SWAC West.
Well, I got to jump in on that. I think the only one I agree with that for the 3 teams: Prairie View, Alcorn, as well as Southern. I think it's opposite for Grambling. I think they have the quarterback play. The question is, can they get enough defense to go along with it? Or as you talked about those four in the mix, interesting to see what that looks like. And simply, Texas Southern the same way. They have a quarterback. The question is he going to be healthy enough to play?
Yeah.
And I think they actually have enough defense to get it done. So I think that's the scary thing about Texas Southern is they have all the cards on the table. Even though they lost that overtime win, we saw how tough that matchup is. The question is, will Body be healthy to play? With that, we got to get to our next break, come back on the other side, and talk about our last two matchups at the major division level, and then we'll call it a show.
You're looking for the latest information on Southern University sports, the Southwestern Athletic Conference, and HBCU athletics. There's only one place to go. Tune in to the Carlos Brown Show, exclusively on the Black College Sports Network.
Nope. Nope.
Come on, him.
Ooh, I like him.
Quick, the quicker picker-upper. Bounty picks up messes quicker, and each sheet is 2 times more absorbent, so you can use less.
He's an 8.
He's a 9.
Bounty, the quicker picker-upper.
At Tyson, we know taste is local. Some like their beef pit smoked, their chicken spiced all the way up, or their pork sweet and saucy. Local flavors, global impact. That's what feeding the world is all about.
This is the BCSN Pod Zone, your place for the news, views, and conversations about all things related to HBCU athletics. Hear the BCSN Sports Wrap, Dr. Cavil's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab, Knights of the Round Table, the pregame show, the Carlos Brown Show, the ONG Strike Zone, and more in one place. We are changing the way you consume HBCU sports, one broadcast at a time.
Press the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna loud and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Cavil inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Welcome back. Professor Drew, Professor Bishop are at it as we get into the major division games of the week. It's going to look like we fell in love with the SWAC. It just happened to be that with the Classic. One of the challenges this week in terms of independent matchups, guess what? It fell on the schedule that all three independent programs, Tennessee State and Hampton after their big wins, as well as North Carolina A&T after a tough loss with their new rival Elon, at least according to Elon, are off this weekend. So with that being said, the bonus game that we're going to give you is a SWAC game that features the number one team, the new number one team that we talked about that was established in week, Florida A&M Rapids. With that being said, let's go back to our HBCU Class Major Division game of the week. We got Jackson, Mississippi. Welcome home, T.C. Taylor. He gets to open it up for the fans as they welcome him home for his first home game of the season. Mississippi Veterans Memorial Stadium, W.C. Gordon Classic. Happens to be a SWAC matchup, and Saturday, September the 23rd is the date of the contest. And the time is 6 o'clock. It will be on ESPN+. You have Bethune-Cookman Wildcats 1-2 on the season, playing their first conference game against Jackson State Tigers that are 2-2 on the season, that have already played a conference game and come in 0-1. Obviously, they're chasing FAMU, so they can't afford a second loss. Bethune-Cookman would love to spoil the opening house party, if you would, for Jackson State. Jackson State, number 5 in their top 7 poll. If I was ranking them again in terms of the top 21 major division programs, Bethune-Cookman would come in at number 14. Drew, what are your thoughts in terms of this match?
First of all, I was pleasantly surprised by Bethune-Cookman's performance last week against the University of Miami. You know, were able to put up some points and keep it relatively close in matchup. You know, that's outside of the Florida A&M victory. I think that may be the second closest margin that we've had. Florida A&M victory, excuse me, Florida A&M lost to South Florida, and maybe like the second closest margin that we've had in a FCS FBS matchup between our HBCUs this year. Jackson State, go back to what Charles said. This was a team that we knew once they figured it out, because of the coaching, because of the talent, that they were going to be dangerous. Well, now this is the opportunity for Jackson State to go and show it. Look, Jackson State's going to be heavily favored in this game. There's going to be probably 40+ thousand still there in the stadium, even without a Coach Prime, because everyone wants to see what Coach TC Taylor has to bring. And TC wants to put on the show, because we know how it is in the first home event of every sport. If you come out, you show out in that first home game, and you win that first home game, you got your fan support for the whole year. If you lose that home game, you lay an egg, you blow it at the end, nobody gonna be there but the girlfriends and the mamas for the rest of the year. So I expect Jackson State to come out and to do good, and to not only win this game, but win this game with relative ease.
I know TC Taylor, in terms of the conference call, he said he wants to see his team that has done, in most people's perspective, look relatively good. I would say good on offense, but he says he really wants to see them break out. So it'll be interesting to see if he can get it done this weekend against Bethune-Cookman. As Drew said, the fans happy at this homecoming, if you would, opening day for the WC Gordon Classic. Charles, what are your thoughts?
I tend to agree with Drew, but I tell you something that should concern you, that could take all the air out the balloon, and that's Jackson State special teams. Jackson State special teams this season has been woeful at best. Huge kickoff return, FAMU. You had the same issues in regards to that with in the Texas State game. But like you mentioned, I do expect a huge turnout. All the guardism, the play for TC-isms that will be, in the house for this game. So, and then the added something that the sort of prick on the shoulder, if you will, is the whole thing with the 6 minutes. That this is a very, very proud community. So they will turn out in droves for Coach Taylor and this Jackson State football team. I do need an impressive performance, because there's just a lot more than just the game kind of riding on it, if you will. So I'm expecting a huge performance for Jackson State.
That's a good point. I didn't think about in terms of the cultural meaning of this game. Guard yard, obviously coming off the 60 minutes component that folks certainly rightfully were frustrated and concerned about. But so good point there. Let's move on to our independent game of the week. As I said earlier, it happens to be a SWAC matchup. That is because the 3 independent major division programs that we tend to feature in this segment happen to have open games the same weekend, so we couldn't pick any of them in terms of having a matchup. So we're going to go to Tallahassee, Florida, with the #1 ranked Florida A&M Rattlers that just earned that ranking. In terms of our poll announcement today, they're 2-1, 1-0 in terms of conference play. So this is Bragg Memorial Stadium, as you know, SWAC, 23rd of September, 5:00 p.m. Central Time on ESPN Plus as well. We'll get a chance to watch these games, those that have access to ESPN Plus. You have Alabama State Hornets, 1-1, having an extra week off to see if it makes a difference. Obviously, they're coming off a tough loss to Miles in that matchup, but they're on the road back in Tallahassee at the #1 program. So they get a chance to make a statement, Hornets. You're talking about getting a big win on the road. It'll be against the #1 ranked team. Be interested to see what that looks like. Charles, what are your thoughts in terms of matchup before I turn it over? If you look at my index of the top 21 HBCU programs, I would have Alabama State Hornets coming in at number 16.
Thus far, I have to say FAMU has passed the eyeball test. The question for me, for a lot of teams going forward, can you get your hands on Jeremy Musa? Because once he's comfortable back there, it's a wrap. So that's the $1 million question. Can this Alabama front seven, can they create enough havoc to get back there to Musa? I've been actually impressed by Florida A&M's rushing attack this season, but I think everything hinges on whether you can put your hands on Jeremy Musa defensively. This has to be a D. Davis breakout game. I mean, you're talking about a quarterback who's been on the ropes since he's been at Alabama State. They started to integrate another quarterback in. Question for me is, can Alabama State move the ball against this very, very stout Florida A&M defense? I got to go with Florida A&M. They haven't lost in Bragg in a second or two, and I don't think it's going to happen this weekend.
Good stuff. Go to you, Charles. Go to you, Drew. Your thoughts in terms of Tallahassee. Number ranked FAMU Rallies hosting SWAC opponent Hornets. Do they get it done and continue that home winning streak? Or is there a way that Hornets have a chance to make the upset? What are your thoughts?
Speaking of that home winning streak, let's put this home winning streak into perspective, everyone. The last time FAMU lost in Bragg, there was no such thing as the coronavirus.
Damn.
Pre-pandemic, 16 in a row that they won at Bragg Memorial Stadium. So with that being said, Dr. Cavil, can Alabama State do it? Yes, they can. They have the defense to do it. If they stick with their running game and keep the ball away from that FAMU offense, they can do it. The problem is Alabama State has not looked good on offense, even in the one win against Southern. They still questions at the quarterback position. You know, you might well throw Alabama State with all the teams in the West. Questions at the quarterback position. They have got to figure out what they're going to do with the quarterback position, or B, switch over to a game manager type position. Go with their pounded running game, because they do have a great running game, and take the air out the ball and keep the FAMU defense at bay. You have to get at Musa, make him uncomfortable. Even West Florida had the ability to make Musa uncomfortable. Something else to note: West Florida was actually able to run the ball against Florida A&M until the second half, when they got down, when they abandoned the run game. So Alabama State, even if you get down, and I don't believe I'm telling you this formula, me being a FAMU Rattler, but stick with the run game, and you have a chance. If you learn anything from the loss to Biles, when you went away from the run game, that's what allowed Biles to get back into the game and to come back and upset you. So they've got to stay with the run game, whether they're up or whether they're down, if they're going to have any chance at Bragg. There was just shy of 18,000 there against West Florida. I expect this crowd to be around 21,000 for this, given the proximity of these two institutions.
Good stuff. Charles, you want to add something in there?
Well, I think the question, and like you mentioned, stick with the run game. Is there a point where you see 8-9 in the box where you got to take some shots downfield? And they got a guy, Keyshawn Johnson. He's going to win his individual battle. I mean, he is a unit. When you take a look at a weapon that they have in the passing game, I agree with you. I want to see them try to stay with the run, but you got to put the ball in that man's hands. That he can make some plays for you. So that's going to be a curious matchup in terms of what FAMU can do with Keyshawn Johnson.
Nice thing is, if they do the run, to your point there, Charles, is now that play action becomes even more.
Yeah.
So to Drew's point is, it's not only do you stick with the run, but you got to be somewhat effective with the run, and then you can sneak in that pass to maybe get Brandon in the action. What else you have, Drew?
You just took the words out of my mouth. Instead of go strictly RPOs, you've got to go with more play action to open it up so that you do have the opportunity to get the ball to Keyshawn Johnson. You got to get that safety to pause for a moment or to dive in to get those openings for Keyshawn Johnson. And fellas, I've told you, the data is starting to trend this way. It's not about rushing yards.
It's about
It's attempts.
rushing attempts.
Yeah.
And if Alabama State gets those attempts, they can stay in this ball game. That's going to keep them within a one-score game. And when it's within a one-score game, anything can happen, y'all.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Great point. Yeah, you're right. And people get tight in those one game matchups. So it'll be fascinating to see what that looks like. That'll do it for us tonight. Thank you, Professor Drew, Professor Bishop. Thank you for listening to Inside HBCU Sports Lab. Make sure you share our podcast with your friends and colleagues. I am Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, the Dean of HBCU Sports, coming from inside the lab in the College of HBCU Sports with Mike Washington, Charles Bishop, and A.D. Drew. I also want to say shout out to the lab listeners. Great action, great dialogue, great talk. Thank you for jumping over to the YouTube, as well as those that followed us and got us going on Facebook. I want to thank Drew for coming in a pinch and making sure that we got us on and got it going. Again, I want to thank you for the listeners. Dr. Bill's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington, Charles Bishop. Every Tuesday and Thursday, we'll be back 6. We'll get into some of the conference matchup. CIAA, SIAC, MEAC, they'll be outside, but they have a matchup between MEAC and SWAC that will feature. The previous number 1 team, now number 2, North Carolina Central takes Valley. People may have forgot the last time Central and Valley came together for a football matchup. Valley sent them home with a loss. So Central Eagles have a little thought process of wanting to get even. This is in a neutral site, so it is a classic. So we'll look at that as well as the SWAC game.
Valley won't sneak up on them. They won't sneak up on them this time, Doc.
I was at least trying to sell it. You're right.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you
of the week. No problem. The SWAC conference game of the week, I'll put it out there now. We'll talk about that Prairie and All-Conference matchup in the West to see what that looks like. And so we'll give you a little bit of that talk on Thursday. With that, follow me, Dr. Kenyatta Cavil. That's DrKenyattacavil. That's Kenyattacavil on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Inside the HBCU Sports Lab 1 on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube is Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Dream big. Continue to move forward. We'll talk with you soon. Charles?
Of course.
Drew?
Lecter.
Dismissed.
Have a light, everybody.